I want to report 5 weeks ago, I gave a bit of a summary on the state of coronavirus and how we're doing as a state and kind of where things are heading. We've crossed into some new territory since then with the start of schools and colleges, sports, and a variety of things. And so I want to give you a little bit of an update. I'm going to share my screen and walk you through some current numbers. If we can get that going, bear with me 1 second. There we go. Everybody see something that says City of Tucker COVID-19 update? So just some basics to give you a feel for, I know a lot of y'all on council especially watch these numbers as well, but this is the same set of data that I showed last time, just for consistency's sake. So on this first screen on the left is our statewide trend in cases. This is by date of onset, so you remember that right here there's a 14-day window where the data in the last 14 days is kind of considered not complete yet, because we may get reports of cases that occurred before that or during that date. But up through 14 days ago, it's pretty reliable not to change in any significant way. So you can see that we have been on a very steep downward trend, which is good news. And as to what happens in the next 14 days, that's something we're going to talk about, but those numbers are less certain, and in fact, the nearer they are to today, the more likely they are to change. But that's good news. Certainly a trend headed in the right direction. On the right is a chart that the AJC has just started reporting relatively recently. And this is the percent of tests conducted which turn out to have a positive result. And so when we were talking about this 5 weeks ago, we were somewhere right in here. We were just at that 10% threshold, which was pretty important because it's one of the factors that goes into calling a state or a county or some other jurisdiction being in the red zone. And we were headed down and just at that threshold. So you can see what's happened since then has been a really steady decline. This sort of squared off hitch right here is all due to this one anomaly, and I don't know what that was that caused such a strange number on that day, but otherwise it's been a pretty smooth progression in the right direction, and it's somewhere around 8% now, maybe slightly less. So it's good. It's good that it's heading in the right direction. Still have a good distance to go before we're where we would like to be. These two, sorry, I'm looking because some of it's covered up on my screen. These are two different measures of the same thing they call retransmission rate. There's a lot of debate about how useful this is. It's certainly not an exact number or a perfect predictor, but both of these have been below 1 for some time now, and that means that for every person who has the virus, less than one new person is judged to be getting it. It just means we're contracting to some degree, and the spread is slowing. Again, not a perfect number, but a pretty good indicator. These two, I think, are very important. On the left is on today, or any given day, how many people in the state of Georgia are in the hospital with COVID. The significant thing here, and it's actually hard to see, it's a little bit of an optical illusion with your naked eye, but today's number, the 7-day rolling average, is 1,554. This number back here, which is the first date it began to be reported, was 1,648. In other words, we today have fewer people in the hospital with COVID than we did on the 1st of May when this number began to be reported, and you can see at the time that was had been higher and was on a downward trend then. So a very clear peak and good progress in the right direction there as well. The chart on the right is newly reported cases by day. In other words, this is each day that they report how many people went to the hospital with COVID on that day. And the red line is a 7-day moving average again. And you can see that today, right through this afternoon, September 14th, is below this peak, and it's well below this peak back in March. So why that is has a lot to do with better treatments, better understanding of how to treat people without having to hospitalize them, therapies, medicines. We've actually begun to use ventilators a lot less, as they've found that they're more effective ways that don't present as much risk. So those are great numbers. Remember, a big part of the point of all the masking and all the precautions was to make sure that we had hospital capacity available should there be a big surge and lots of people need hospitalization. So these are really good numbers in that sense. On this next page, there's a whole bunch of stuff. This relates mostly to DeKalb County. And so you see the chart on the left. This is cases by date of onset in DeKalb County. So it also has this 14-day window. But again, you can see we endured that huge spike back the end of June, middle of July, and we're back down to a range that's much more like June and May before that. So again, not where we want to halt our efforts by any means, but certainly moving in the right direction. This map here just shows sort of hot spots, for lack of a better word. You can see the gradation of color across the top, and so DeKalb County right here is in the very light yellow, which is a good sign for community spread. This chart in top right is percent positive in DeKalb County, and you can see back here, of course, it was much higher. This is the 14-day window. That number is 5.3%, meaning pretty solid final numbers through 14 days ago. We were just over 5%. This number out here, which is still subject to change, is closer to 4%. So again, great moves in the right direction. And this one chart down here in the bottom right shows two different things at the same time. It's showing the daily case counts in these vertical lines, so you can see there's that huge spike again in DeKalb, just as it has been elsewhere, but much reduced, much more like the earlier days of the virus. The red arc that's kind of going up there is the total cumulative number, so it just adds to. That line's going to always go up until we get to the point where we have no cases on any given day. Both of those are, when we talk about flattening the curve, we want to flatten both of those curves, which are really going in two different directions, and you can see that they are going in the right direction. So all this is to say, there's a couple of important takeaways. Today is 1 week since the end of Labor Day weekend, so we're going to find out whether people were behaving over Labor Day weekend. It's just about now, and especially through the rest of this week, that we'll see the effects of people who may have let their guard down or decided this thing was not really that big a problem, whatever it might be. They're going to start to turn up in positive test results if that was widespread. If we see good results this week, it's going to be very encouraging to me that we the large we, did behave ourselves, and maybe we'll continue to drive the rates down all around. But the other thing that I'll tell you, and I don't know, the DeKalb School Board was meeting tonight. I don't know if they have made or announced any decisions, but all these schools that are thinking about going back, the colleges, you want to play or watch football, all those things depend on one simple thing, and that is that each person does their job to keep this thing down. We've got to keep on going. All these good numbers that I just showed are the result of people, I think probably because of these big spikes a month or two ago, realized, you know, this is a real deal. I can't ignore it. I can't pretend like it's not out there. I think we've been doing a great job statewide, countywide, right in Tucker, behaving as it were on those things. And that's what's going to make the difference going forward. So we're kind of at a critical time this week and next to see which way things begin to head. And I think if we remain diligent, we're going to push on through, and every day gets us closer to a vaccine, better therapies, new treatments, all of those things. So carry on and keep it up. I think we've been doing a great job, and it really is in our own hands as to how it goes from here. So